Well, welcome members and witnesses to the 27th meeting of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Environment, pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on Monday, November 2nd. The committee is meeting on its study of single-use plastics. Just for the benefit of the witnesses, because the members are quite familiar with this, the witnesses will have 5 minutes to present, and when they're not speaking, if they could put themselves on mute, and then after the presentations, we'll have multiple rounds of questions, and if you could direct your comments and answers through the chair, that would be appreciated. So today we have from the City of Montreal, Maya Vadonovich, Mayor of the Borough of Lachine, but also a member of the advisory, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe the advisory committee of the Zero Plastics group. We have from Merlin Plastics, Tony Mukachin, the President and Chief Executive Officer, and from the Retail Council of Canada, we have Mr. Philippe Quentin, Senior Director, Sustainability, Innovation, and Circular Economy. So I'll just go by the order here. We'll start with Ms. Vodanovich for 5 minutes, please. You're on mute.
Hello, everyone. Everyone hears me well?
Yes, yes.
Very good. So as Mr. Scarpaleggia said, well, first of all, thank you for inviting me today. And I'm honored to be here, actually. I'm thrilled to be able to talk about plastics. I'm a borough mayor, but completely fascinated by the whole plastics industry, Canadian plastics industry. So I represent the Greater Montreal area at National Zero Waste Council, where I co-chaired with Andrew Marr, who is part of Metro Vancouver, the Plastics Advisory Panel. And we created about 12 recommendations for different plastic wastes across Canada, which we identified as the most problematic ones. And we created this document because we need to work better together. We need to collaborate. The federal, provincial, and municipal governments. We need to create new federal, provincial, and municipal legislations and bylaw that will allow us to implement these needed solutions. And this is why I'm so thrilled that you can hear me today, because we definitely need the federal government involved in order to solve these issues.
Excuse me, Ms. Vodanovich,
yes.
Could you just hold the mic up a little closer to you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. We need to impose recycled content in packaging on the Canadian market. We need a packaging standard, and we need to define corresponding eco-fees. We need to ban certain products, and we need to expand deposit systems, and we must implement extended producer responsibility nationwide in a coherent and harmonized fashion. So in order to create a viable market for recycled content, for recycled plastics, the federal government must impose a mandatory and incrementally increased recycled content in plastics on the Canadian market. This legislation must rapidly be put in place in order for Canada to reach its target of 50% recycled content by 2030. The European Union and California have already voted to recite these recycled content laws. And Montreal just joined the Canadian Plastic Pact that aims to impose 30% recycled content in Canadian packaging. It is the most important legislature that must be put in place as fast as possible. It alone can kickstart a circular economy in the plastic industry. And why do we need to impose recycled content? Well, because virgin plastics are inexpensive, thanks to oil and very, very cheap shale gas in Canada. $1 billion of investments from our government, from both federal and provincial government, into the virgin plastic industry contributes to keeping those prices very, very low. And this makes it difficult, if not impossible, for recycled plastic, who get 1,000 times less money, to be anywhere as competitive. So among the various plastic objects we see around us, as I'm sure you already know, only 9% of these objects are recycled, and they're mostly downcycled, which means into lower quality resins. So we need courageous legislation and equivalent funding from the federal government to bring post-consumers plastics back into the loop. And how do we bring it back into the loop? We need to influence the market. Because in a market economy, it is consumer decision that influence the industry. And the experience in other countries demonstrate that adding visible eco-fees on problematic, non-recyclable, and single-use item is the most effective means in reducing those wastes. And I'm proud to say that our Canadian packaging industry, PAC, is currently working to define a national standard to rate packaging based on its recycled content and environmental impact. And I'm working with them on that. This standard will allow our government to set appropriate eco-fees that will encourage good packaging. And I would like you now just to imagine if you could see an eco-fee on a label of a product. Let's take a water bottle, for example. And on its label, you see a 10 cents that is added for an eco-fee because it is made of exclusively from virgin plastic, and it is for, let's say, type 5 plastic, which is very, very difficult to recycle in our country. And next to it, you see a product that has 0 cent eco-fee, and it is made with 30% recycled content, and it is made with type 1 or 2 plastic that is recycled in your community. So then you could say, okay, do I pay this 10 cents for this bad product? Well, not recyclable product, or do I not pay a fee because it is a good product? And that would curb the market. So producers, they already pay a recycling fee across Canada on all products, but that fee is not visible. It is combined in the total product cost, and it does not reflect the true recyclability of the product. Not enough anyways to make a real difference for the market. Labeling will enable the consumer to make an informed choice and shape the market in the needed direction. And knowing as a consumer that you are buying a certified good package is the best way for efficient EPR. Now, EPR makes producers responsible. This is, I think, makes producers responsible for their product till the very end, to the end of life. And producers are very important municipal partners because when they become responsible for financing, managing, and operating a full recycling system, they can contribute positively to the community, the environment, and our economy. When the producers become financially responsible for the end of life of their product, they gain the incentive to design and operate systems most efficiently. A few years ago, BC implemented a comprehensive EPR, which is Extended Producer Responsibility Program, and now it has the highest recycling rates in Canada.
Okay, I think we're sort of a bit past the 5-minute mark. I think no, it's all right. It's not the first time the witnesses do this regularly. Don't feel bad, but yeah. But so we'll go now but there'll be time to get information in when you answer questions. Okay. We'll go now to Mr. Mukachin for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you for inviting me to the committee. The current federal approach is focused on introducing ban on some plastics. As a recycler, this approach failed to recognize the value of post-consumer plastics to industry and society. Ban on plastics product suggests that the material is problematic when, in fact, it's the absence of appropriate waste management systems that is the issue. Many plastic can already be recycled, but as a society, we have not invested sufficiently in the system infrastructure and technology required to maximize recycling opportunities. Some plastics are considered harder to recycle than others, but there are solutions available or in pilot phase that can address our requirement. Canada needs to focus on supporting economic development opportunity to augment the technologies for mechanical recycling and create the space for chemical recycling technology to flourish. The current federal government approach will not address the crux of the issue, namely, how will we deal with the end of life of packaging? Rather than introduce a ban, I would rather see the introduction of a disruptive fee levied against packaging that does not comply with required recyclability standard, such as Design for Recyclability Guideline. As a business person and innovator who builds the largest plastics recycling company in Canada, I know that we can do better if industry and government cooperate and focus on solutions. Rather than introducing ban or what I could call a stick approach, I would urge the government to instead use a carrot approach and incentivize the brand owner to design their package for recyclability and incentivize them to use post-consumer resin in their packaging. We need to make brand owner accountable for the end-of-life design of their package through eco-fees that Maya has clearly described, and I greatly support. I would also urge the government to encourage the development of further recycling infrastructure and invest in the building of such infrastructure. The above will result in one, improved product design for recyclability, which is the key element for future development. Technological innovation in mechanical and chemical recycling, number 2. And thirdly, greater capacity to recycle and force more end market for recycled recycled content in the product. This approach has 3 further benefits. It meets environmental sustainability goals, since plastics is often a more sustainable choice compared to alternative material. It will demonstrate efficient use and reuse of extracted resource. It will catapult Canada into global leadership on this important issue. I mean, plastics has demonstrated in many cases its benefit. I mean, we see it in COVID-19 by using through the COVID-19 by having masks to stop or to prevent infecting other people. We use it. We see it in our clothes. We see it in our fridge, in packaging milk, and etc. So there is good use for it, and it is not in any way, shape, form toxic. It's actually help us in our society. But we need good policy to make it circular, as Maya have described and as I mentioned. That's all I have to say.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Mukachin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mukachin. Mr. Quentin, now the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the floor today and for allowing me to take part in this meeting.
Sector employer with over 2.1 million Canadians working in our industry and annually generates over 76 billion in wages and employee benefits. The Retail Council of Canada is a not-for-profit industry-funded association that represents more than 45,000 storefronts in all retail formats in every community across Canada. And we represent roughly 95% of the grocery market as well. De façon générale, nous sommes en faveur d'une approche.
Overall, we are in favour of a Canadian approach that bans some single-use plastics that would damage our supply chain and which are very laborious with a patchwork of municipal and provincial regulations. Municipal bans, in fact, raise a number of challenges, especially for online businesses and food delivery businesses. A federal ban would provide for greater clarity and assure for more effective implementation. More clarity is needed in terms of the government's intention to broaden the scope of the ban, and given there is a pandemic, businesses need as much certainty as possible, so we need to allow enough time for a broad-based ban so that businesses can use up their stock of single-use plastics and also avoid discarding them or throwing them away, and also to give them time to discover useful alternatives. We don't want corporations to benefit from the difficulties that small and medium-sized businesses face. The government also needs to support the development of infrastructure for recycling and recovery of these plastics, and also provide for new packaging.
Single-use plastics. The government should provide at least 1 year notice to allow businesses to adjust to the new requirements. For all items, there needs to be very clear definitions of inclusions and exclusions by material and function. Exemptions are also need to be clearly defined with considerations for accessibility, health, food safety, and security. We need to ensure materials are both available and have been assessed to ensure their impact on the environment is lower than materials that they'll be replacing. Language around a viable alternative needs to be clarified, as there are numerous considerations around what makes something viable and whether an item can be sourced at scale. And restrictions or bans should occur at all three levels throughout the supply chain: manufacturing, import, and sale. This type of approach will help promote consistency when it comes to promoting alternatives. Although we generally support the proposed ban, RCC does not believe CEPA Schedule 1 is the right policy tool to manage plastics. CEPA Schedule 1 is used to ban specific chemical substances and list them as toxic, not to designate a broad material category such as plastics manufactured items. The broad wording could cause significant consumer confusion, and communication cannot be left open for interpretation when we talk about substances or items becoming toxic. The proposed use of CEPA Schedule 1 also unfortunately politicizes a chemicals management tool that is widely recognized as credible and well-reasoned around the world by both states and industry alike. And so a different policy tool such as pollution prevention plan could be used in lieu of CEPA Schedule 1. Quand on pense au bannissement d'articles.
When it comes to banning single-use plastics, well, plastic bags are the first examples that come to mind. It's important in any definitions that we define what a plastic bag is, whether it be a grocery store bag or whether it be a bag for takeout foods, a bag for meat, or for bulk foods in supermarkets. This should not be included in the definition because oftentimes they're required for health reasons.
Accessibility reasons, so there should be exemptions to recognize the situation in the proposal. And language also needs to be clear around whether packages of products, such as straws, packages of stir sticks, or products sold with a straw will be captured. The latter should not be, as it will have major supply chain impacts and product design impacts.
Alors, c'est bon, monsieur.
I'm afraid that you have run out of time, so we'll be moving on to members' questions. And we'll start with Mr. Albas for 6 minutes, please. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
I'm really excited to have such a wonderful BC company like Merlin here today. So this obviously is to the gentleman from Merlin. Certainly you recycle plastic goods to create substances to use to create new products, something I think we're all happy here to see. However, under the government's plan to declare all plastics as toxic and regulate them under CEPA, your recycled goods that use recycled plastics would be considered toxic. Do you think that that is the right way to encourage a better circular economy?
I definitely have a difficulty because I don't believe they are toxic. I do want circular economy, but I also want to give the consumer, as my colleague said, the right information. I don't want to call it toxic just because I want to use it as recycling. You know, at the end of the day, la fin ne justifie pas les moyens.
The end doesn't justify the means.
Okay. Oh no, we are removing the toxic name from the schedule. But as I said at this committee last week, the entire structure of CEPA is to regulate based on substances being toxic. And the word is used many times in the legislation, or in the act, I should say. So I don't think changing one list will solve that. Do you think using a law with criminal penalties like CEPA is better than working with industry and provinces to develop better recycling systems?
I believe you should work with industry and cooperate with them. But I also believe in a stick and a carrot policy. I mean, those are the two fundamental things that we learn in Business 101. I mean, if there is no incentive, like eco fees, like Maya mentioned, could be an incentive. It doesn't have to be a stick, but there should be implication and incentive to make sure that brand owners are moving toward recyclable products. They're designing their product to be in line with current recycling infrastructure. I mean, they should have an incentive to do so. And the lack of incentive will basically they won't address it. We all have multiple problems to run a business. And what are we going to look after? We're going to look after the one that is immediate that we need to deal with. So I believe that we need a carrot and a stick approach. I'm not sure I know eco fees is definitely one that is usable. Europe has used it. California has used it, where they give incentive for people who use post-consumer content or reduce their fees in collecting their package. So I definitely believe that you cannot, voluntary things can work only for so long. If you want something that's going to work, it's got to be regulated in some way, shape, form.
So we'll go back to incentives and other things you can be done at the provincial level, because we've heard at this committee that BC has much higher recycling rates, and I do think the supply chains you and your company and others like it have done is a big part of that. But just for us just to finish the thought when it comes to SEPA, will the bans and toxic designation under SEPA hurt your business and the businesses you supply with recycled materials with?
I believe it could hurt the business. Yes, it could give the wrong message to the consumer that this product is hazardous, when we know in fact that it saves life. When you look at masks for COVID-19, I mean, it does save life. We see it in hospital. So saying that plastics is hurting the environment or is toxic and can be, to me, it's a wrong message. When I started the business 30 years ago, the big thing about the environment was clear cutting trees coming in British Columbia and taking the trees and turning them into paper. And plastics was an alternative to stop cutting trees and deforestation. So to me, it's very important to have a circular economy. It's how do we do it? I don't believe that the end justifies the means. I believe philosophically that this is not the right approach.
So on that, the right approach is because what we've heard from other producers or what we've heard from producers, period, is that when this will chase away investment. They've said that already lots of investment has gone to the United States, and we've become where people are not willing to invest in Canada, even though we make some virgin resin that is among the best in the world. So if there's less investment in your industry, will that make it harder for people like yourself to be able to grow a proper circular economy?
I believe so. I believe it's like being swimming in the ocean. If the tide is high, everybody is going to benefit. If the tide is low, everybody is going to suffer. So to me, we complement each other, virgin resin and recycling content. We complement each other. I don't see us... It's a mosaic. And the answer is hybrid. It's not one or the other. It's a combination. That's the way I see it.
So in British Columbia, we've obviously had producer responsibility legislation that in place for quite a while. Is that what you're talking about, working with industry to say what fees will be charged to whom and that they will be rebated, because then it creates the infrastructure and the certainty for people like yourself to be able to take in more and to create that circular economy that many other provinces are now talking about and becoming very alive to the fact?
Very quickly, please, like 10 seconds, please.
Definitely, this is one of a good approach. Accountability is a good approach. When you want to get serious about anything you do, you start measuring it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Saini, for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome to all the witnesses. Very happy to have all of you here on this Monday afternoon. Monsieur Quentin, I want to start with you first, because I've been reading some of the stuff that you have your organization has written, and something that your executive director has stated also publicly, and also comments that you made in your initial remarks. As you're aware, the current recycling system in Canada is a patchwork that varies province to province and even municipality to municipality. An item that is recyclable in one place may not be allowed to be recyclable just one town over. Do you believe that harmonized federal action on plastics would create better regulatory certainty for businesses than the current patchwork of regulations across hundreds of municipalities?
Definitely, for sure. And I think the extended producer responsibility, as Maya mentioned earlier, is also one of the key aspects to the key components to success in a federal approach on that. Recognizing that there are provincial areas of champs de compétences provinciales, désolé.
Provincial areas of jurisdiction.
It's really important to make sure that the federal government doesn't, get into the provincial responsibilities, to make sure that this is an effective approach where it's truly harmonized. And I think building on standards around EPR and recycled content might actually help harmonize the systems across Canada, as opposed to getting into something that's a little bit more hands-on when we talk about EPR.
So just so I can understand this, you're suggesting that harmonization would help municipalities, and according to your organization, would also provide certainty for businesses.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Ms. Vodanovich, I know that you're a municipal leader also. Do you agree with those comments that harmonization would help?
Absolutely. I went to many different conferences, and I heard, Canadian Tire, Loblaw is saying it's a nightmare. There's like different regulations in Quebec that we have to comply to for all our products on the shelves. It's different in Ontario, different in Vancouver. They have people full time, doing that. And if we had a harmonized system across each province, then the market would also be bigger. It would be easier for them, and we would create more of a market for the plastics, recycled plastics that we do produce.
Just a reminder, Ms. Vodanovich, to hold the mic up a little.
Oh, I'm very sorry. Yes. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Saini.
The second question I have for Mr. Canton is, while we know banning single-use plastics is a move in the right direction, it won't solve all of our plastic pollution troubles overnight. To date, the majority of recyclable plastics that would not be included in this ban still aren't recycling up in landfill in the environment. How do you suggest, or what advice would you give to how to get the rest of the plastics out of the landfills and into a circular system?
Yeah, I think we need to kickstart a circular economy by making sure that there's a really good basis for the material that we collect for recycling. And so recycled content standards, I think, would be the key for that. Incremental standards to make sure that the market has the capacity to absorb changes over time. I think this would be the key, because at this point we're really looking at a system where we're sending stuff to recycling, but then we're not really in a position to have any ways to use that material again and close the loop on packaging. And so that would be a way to connect the output with the new input and really close the loop on circular economy.
Okay. This question is for Mr. Mukachen. I just want to ask you a question. Oftentimes when plastics are recycled, they're recycled into plastics of lesser value that can't be recycled again. For example, recyclable bottles might be recycled into plastic bags or clothing fabric. How do we ensure that recycled plastics just don't get recycled once, but can continually be recycled? And so there's a circular loop involved in that.
By designing the package itself. So, for example, a clear bottle that have a label and printing that is soluble in caustic and it dissolves. So, proper designing the package would allow you right from the get-go that it can be recirculated and recycled and returned into the same package. One of the challenges that we face is that, for example, if a package has a lot of printing and a lot of color, we cannot turn a multicolor product back into a clear form. And so So those are some of the issues that we consider. But in terms of environmental benefit, for the way I see it is that regardless of the application we sell to, we are displacing a non-renewable resource virgin resin. So if we're selling our product into a bottle or if we're selling it back into a pipe, if we don't sell this recycled material into a pipe, by recycling it, by selling it into a pipe versus a bottle, we're displacing 1 pound of virgin resin of non-renewable resource. So the environmental benefit and the reduction of carbon of the carbon is still the same. But it's, I can see, philosophically, it's better to see it over and over again, multiple times, instead of going from a consumable good to a durable good. But even if we go to a durable good, we're still displacing a pound of non-renewable resource.
Now, the government does have a proposal for recycled content standards. What's your opinion on that?
Très rapidement, s'il vous plaît.
Very quickly, if you would.
I think it's we need sustainable market, and as Maya and mentioned, when we're facing we have to maintain our service to our community, and we cannot compete with commodities.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
On passe maintenant, Madame Posé.
Ms. Posé, the floor is yours. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Mr. Chairman, before my timer starts, I'd just like to know what's happened to Mr. Marc Olivier. We heard that 45 minutes before the meeting started that he was supposed to be in attendance, and yet he's not here. So have we had any news about him? I'll just ask the clerk, says the chair. Yes, we've had a back and forth with Mr. Olivier, and apparently he'll be joining us soon. He is having technical issues in the sense that he hasn't been able to join the meeting yet. Will you let us know, Madam Clerk, when he is ready? Perhaps just to shoot us a quick email, and we'll try and give him his 5 minutes at some point. Ms. Posé, please continue. Well, my first question is for you, Madam Mayor. You represent the borough of Lachine, and zero waste is a priority. This measure to ban the 6 single-use plastics, is it up to the task that the city is facing right now in terms of single-use plastics? You are on mute, unfortunately, Ms. Vodanovic. Well, absolutely not. And thank you for your question. I think we need to go much further. It's a drop in an ocean. If you look in supermarkets, there are thousands of single-use plastics containers. We're not just talking about forks and knives. Shampoo bottles are used for a couple of weeks and then thrown out. So we have to look at all the items that we produce and go much further than just these 6 items. And the recycled content rule is one way of getting there. Second question is for Mr. Quentin. Mr. Quentin, on your website, you refer to the EPR, and there's a report, and it discusses what occurred in Europe and elsewhere in North America. And when you try and click on the report, it says error 404. So I just wanted to let you know. Would it be possible to send through that report? I know that Europe is tens of years, decades ahead of us when it comes to the use of single-use plastics. So I just want to know what's going on with the website, because I've tried a number of computers and devices. You're referring to our particular website, says Mr. Quentin? Yes, indeed. It's on your Retail Council of Canada website. I go to the section Extended Producer Responsibility, and then it says download, but it didn't work. It just says error 404. I see. Well, I'll try and get it to you and make it available to all committee members. Thank you very much for that. Now, I do have a question. Earlier you said that the 6 items aren't toxic. And yet, Ms. Curran, who's an environmental lawyer, and she defined the three components of toxicity: a long-term effect on the environment, a hazard for the environment, a danger to human health. So how is it that the industry is digging its heels in and quibbling about definitions such as that of toxicity? Because quite clearly it does meet the definition of toxicity. Response. Well, perhaps clearly they are toxic items, but these are items that are manufactured in plastic, and that's far broader than the 6 items that are going to be banned. So based on the criteria that have been used, and I agree with you, they are considered toxic. I see. Now, you work in sustainable development and innovation. Has the time come for the government to reduce subsidies to the petrochemical sector and take those funds and invest them in the recovery and recycling programs? And, well, I can't tell you how the government should manage its budgets, but what I can tell you is that there needs to be greater support and greater incentives for a green economy, a greater circular economy when it comes to packaging, that's for sure. I see. So from what I understand, the solution is doesn't come from that root cause. We need to look at other ways of achieving this circular economy. Mr. McCutcheon, I have a question for you. First, I'd like to take my hat off to you for the initiatives and the development of the circular economy. You've developed a partnership with Nova Chemicals that produces virgin resin. And what's bizarre is that we had Dow Chemicals representative before us last week, and that company was not at all open like Nova is. Could you please explain how Merely Plastic has been able to achieve a partnership with Nova? Response. Well, the Nova clients want a post-consumer percentage content amount. So Nova is looking to develop a partnership with a company that can help them to grow their sector. It's not like it used to be in the past. It's either one or the other. It's not either recycled resin or virgin resin. We need both. They need to come together. And Nova has understood what the system is about, and Dow had too. 30 years ago, when I started in this sphere, I started working with Dow Chemical, and we provided Dow Chemical with those products because their top client wanted post-consumer content. But that was in the 1980s. And in 1990, there was the Iraq War, and petrol dropped to $10, $11 a barrel, or oil rather. And so the brand owner were no longer interested in buying recycled product because it was more expensive at that time. Thank you very much. I have Mr. Olivier, who apparently has joined us. So what I would like to do at this juncture... Are you there, Mr. Olivier? Are you there? Do we have Mr. Olivier with us, Madam Clerk? Yes, I am. I had trouble joining the meeting, I'm afraid, says Mr. Olivier. Well, here's what we're going to do, says the clerk. We'll ask you to make your opening remarks. Keep them to 5 minutes, if you would, and then we'll continue with Mr. Bachrach for 6 minutes. So please go ahead, Mr. Olivier. Well, thank you very much, and thanks to all members of the committee for having me. We have a very specific interest and stake in this. And when I say we, I'm a member of a group of applied researchers. Do you have a headset, sir? I do not. I'm in a broadcasting studio that we use for remote teaching. So can you hear me? Well, Madam Clerk, is the sound quality adequate for the interpreters?
Est-ce que ça va?
Can you hear me? We're just checking. Do you have any headset whatsoever, earbuds, any kind of microphone? Yes, we do have microphones, but they're integrated into the current system for our class lessons. So it's part and parcel of the camera, and it's part of the teaching service that we have and the technology we currently use.
On va attendre. Madame la greffière va nous aviser.
Well, hold on. We'll just see what the clerk says. We do have strict rules that we need to follow when it comes to headsets. We even passed motions in that regard. Well, it's for the benefit of the interpreters, and we want to protect their hearing. I see. Well, I did send the text so that interpreters would have it slightly in advance, though. Just let me confirm.
Vous n'avez pas accès. Si vous êtes dans un
If you're in a studio with all that IT equipment, I'm just wondering if it would be possible for you to get a headset of some sort. Well, there is some equipment, but I'm not sure whether or not it's reliable equipment. It's the equipment we were using last year before we renovated our facilities for the remote teaching that we set up. So we had problems with background noise, and so we tried to do away with that with the new technology. Are the interpreters going to be okay? Yes, they will. They'll proceed under the current conditions. Please do go ahead, Mr. Olivier. Well, thank you very much. I tried to follow all the rules. I even put on a tie and a jacket to be able to take part in this meeting. So thank you for your indulgence. Well, the interpreters are grateful to you. Well, there you have it. Thank you. So we have a bit of a slightly different take on that game plan vis-a-vis what I'm hearing from the other participants thus far. We are a centre for applied research, and we work with businesses on the product life cycles. We don't work directly with consumers, let that be said, and we don't have any position when it comes to how these plastics work in society. So the question we ask ourselves, how can we extend the lifestyle of these materials in a consistent way? So I just wanted to give you that context as a backdrop. So we get materials from factories and plants, from sorting centres. These are domestic articles that go through sorting centres, and of course we are called upon to take part in circular economy movements in order to collect as much material as possible with a view to extending the life cycle of these products. Now, last week, I took part in a meeting, and it became apparent that, well, everyone's in support of motherhood and apple pie and banning plastics, but that's not all that needs to be done. There are other things that need to be taken into account, specifically with regards to single-use plastics. Well, when the material reaches us, we have to take a consistent approach. And in the brief that I tabled, I outlined three strategies to avoid designing single-use object plastics that are unsuitable for our recovery and recycling efforts. Only reusable objects create the sustainable development approach. If single-use objects are absolutely necessary in some contexts, then we need to choose them based on their low environmental footprint and the ease of recovery and recycling. And quite clearly, our position isn't in line with that of other witnesses that claim that recovery and recycling is a silver bullet, is not a silver bullet, and that all you have to do is ban, ban, ban. But we have real needs in society, and we have to be reconciled with that. And that brings me to my third and final point, which is important. If the single-use item must be made of plastic, if it must be, then the purchase and distribution of it must be conditional on a proper recovery and recycling plan being put in place. So it's all we could, in fact, have regulatory bodies that would be responsible for, financially speaking and otherwise speaking, for putting in place forms of recycling and recovery. We know that there are accreditation and regulatory bodies. There are already 5 of them in Quebec that are up and running. But that would be highly innovative, i.e., look at these single-use plastic items in that perspective. So I'll take off my researcher's hat, and I have to tell you this, and you already know it, but there is a particular phenomenon at play here, and that is there's an elephant in the room. And that elephant that everyone doesn't want to speak about are the masks, the compliance mask. Aren't they the perfect example of a single-use item where we have absolutely no plan for recovery and recycling whatsoever? There are masks all across the world that are being used, and what I can tell you is that on behalf of students at schools, students are saying, how is it possible? How on earth is it possible that there's been no plan put in place for wide-scale recovery and recycling of these masks? Students have been telling the government pre-pandemic that things needed to change from an environmental standpoint, and the best example that students are seeing of this is this shameful waste of... Well, we'll stop there if you don't mind, sir, because we've run out of time, and we'll move on with the first round of questions. Mr. Backrack, the floor is yours. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all of our witnesses. We've heard so much interesting and provocative testimony on this subject over the past few meetings. Mayor Vodanovic, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Is that close enough? I also have a surname that people sometimes struggle with, so I'm used to the challenge there. I have some questions about the municipal role, and I'm wondering if you could speak to the way in which a federal ban on single-use plastics would support municipal waste management strategies and operations.
Yes. Well, on a municipal level, we're kind of stuck. We're stuck to run recycling plants, and that at the end can't sell their things. And I've looking at how to solve municipal issues. Well, I'm always looking at the federal government. That's why I'm so happy to be here, because if you do it just in a small, if I just do it in my borough, if we just do it in Montreal, like we banned plastic bags. I was on that commission, but it is not the most efficient thing. Yes, you can ban things and it's okay, but the best thing is to put a price tag on it. If you, for instance, in Ireland, it's $1 per bag, and they stop using bags, 90% of it. But it's something that a municipality can't do. Only the federal government can act on that. So we need to look across the country how to work in a system, not just because we want to create a circular system. We don't just want to ban certain things because it won't be effective.
Thank you for that response. I think I heard at the outset that you were supportive of the federal government's proposed approach to banning certain items, and I wonder, I'm hearing a little bit of a different message now. Could you elaborate on the place that you see for bans specifically?
I agree with the ban, but since it's the first moment, I feel funny being here today talking about what I say in private. But when you talk about banning straws, great. But I mean, it is so little. It is so little. We have so much more to do. And Canada is a producer of oil. We are chemical experts. Like, we can do this. We can be the forerunners in this circular economy based on plastics. You know, just banning straws is not enough. We can just go so much more. We could anyway, that's what I have to say. Yeah.
So yeah, I understand that the list of 6 product types proposed for banning is based on a number of criteria. My question is whether, using those same criteria, the federal government should capture a wider range of products. Are there other products that you would like to see included in that list?
Well, what I really would like the government to do is to impose a recycling a percentage, a 30% recycling content imposition on all packaging in Canada. I think that will create a much bigger shift in our economy than just banning. Yes, banning. There's toxic plastics around. Number 3 and number 5 is not that great, and some number 7s. We should ban those and just do the toxics, the plastics that are not toxic. But we should go beyond just bans, definitely. And I mean, if we want to be ambitious as the ocean charter that the government has embarked on, we have to be ambitious in other venues as well.
Thank you. Now, living in British Columbia, I'm quite familiar with the EPR system here, and the small community that I live in has curbside pickup. We had it for a few years and then we lost it. We just got it back, which is very exciting. But I know that it's a voluntary system, so many people don't avail themselves of the recycling option that is provided. Is EPR sufficient to get us to where we need to be in terms of recovery rates in the recycling system?
I think, we need EPR, but we also need, combined with EPR, is the deposit system where people get money back. And that it's huge. It really, you get good quality plastics and you get lots of it. And I know the industry has, I've been to many, I was in your place for different commissions for Montreal, and usually the industry is against it. The producers say, no, deposit system is no good, just put it in recycling. But I think it should be a combination of curbside and not just me, the whole Zero Waste Council, curbside and deposit system, which are very, very good. And especially if you have a price tag on, if you buy something that is that is anyways, I won't go into that. The whole eco fees is too much of an issue, but I hope that we have a nationwide EPR system, but that is at least as good as BC or better. But let's not downscale ourselves.
I wonder, just picking up on where you left off with regard to eco fees and looking at the 6 product types that are being proposed for the federal ban, is it practical to apply eco fees to things like straws or 6-pack rings, those kind of products that they seem to be falling through the cracks of our current recycling approach?
I think you could easily, you can ban certain things, no problem. I mean, certain things you don't need. So yes, ban, Okay. But other things, if you have, I don't know, if you go to a restaurant and you buy and you have, takeout and you have all these things, but if you know that you're paying 20 cents for that or 30 cents, 40 cents, it'll change. You won't do it. You will bring your plate, you will bring your bag. If you're paying 50 cents for a bag, when they give it to you, you won't, it changes. And that has been proven around the world that paying fees curbs consumer attitude.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, we'll go to our second round, starting, it's a five-minute round, essentially, starting with Ms. McLeod.
Thank you, and thanks to all the witnesses. And Mr. Olivier, glad that you could join us, because you said something that actually sparked my concerns also, and that's about the masks. And what do you see as something that could be, I guess, recover, but then what could ultimately happen with these masks? So can you just speak a little bit further? Have you thought this particular issue through?
Oui, bien sûr.
Yes, of course. Now, we have tried to tap into awareness that already exists, and we found this at a university. In fact, there are two universities, Sherbrooke at its Sherbrooke campus, and also the University Centre, which is also located in Sherbrooke. We were able to put in place a process for the recovery of masks, which is being spearheaded by students. We have a highly active student population, and since November, we are recovering systematically in waste baskets that are identified depending on the type of masks, because students have to wear them. We have containers that are chock-a-block full of used masks, and we have an operating agreement with a company from the region. So it's a circular economy project using companies from the Eastern Townships. And we are producing a new eco material with these used masks. There's 2.6 grams of polypurine used in the masks. So about 2.5 grams of polycuprin. We recover the masks, we take off the elastic band, and then we have this material, high quality material, which is 100% recyclable. No problems there, but we have to then store them and take them to a company where there is a plant in which the fibers from the wood are mixed with this particular polycubrin, and then we use that material that is reinforced by wood fiber, and there are three particular ways that it can be used. It can be used to manufacture construction board, like we see in the building industry, and also it has the form of plastic, but it's much more resistant than typical plastic. So that's the first use. The second use is the Enercam company, which is highly active in the Eastern Townships, that takes this organic material and that takes out the polymers from the product and returns it to takes it to a different type of chemical structure, which is a mixture of carbon dioxide and another chemical. And now they're in the process of synthesizing ethanol from other organic materials that they are using in this process. And then there's the final use. Now, given that it is an eco material, it's 2/3 biomass, 1/3 polypyrene, and it is categorized as being part and parcel of sustainable development, and it can be used as an alternative fuel, which is carbon neutral. It's, I think the best thing to do would be to recycle it, but it can even be used as a fuel, and it can become carbon neutral in doing so. It could be used for electricity in a closed-circuit plant because it is entirely carbon neutral. And one of the financial benefits of this is, well, companies can use this eco-material, and it is excellent when it comes to obtaining carbon credits for the future. Now we'll hand the floor to the next speaker.
Ms. McLeod, that was 5 minutes
Thank you.
in total. Sorry about that. Mr. Baker.
Thanks very much, Chair, and thank you all to all the witnesses who are here today. I know I have questions for all of you, and I won't have time to get to all of you, but I thank you for being here. I'd like to start with Mr. McCutcheon. Mr. McCutcheon, in your my colleague Mr. Saini was asking you a question at the end of his time, and I think you got cut off in answering, and I just wanted to follow up to see if you had anything else to say on it. The question he was asking you was how you viewed the government's proposal to introduce recycled content standards. Do you have anything else you wanted to add to that? You got cut off, and I wanted to make sure you had a chance to answer that fully.
I mean, it's a great approach. We know that market demand is going to create everything else going to follow. So I believe post-consumer content is going to be good, but equally important is going to go back to the design of the package. The package has to be designed so it can be taken back, can be reformulated over and over again. And it may cost more money to make the product originally if you want to reuse it over and over again than just use it and send it to a durable application.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. I thank you for that. I'm gonna move on to Mayor Vodanovich. Mayor Vodanovich, you spoke, and I think it was in response to a question from Mr. Bachrach that you have products in your waste disposal or your recycling system that you can't sell off, I think is what I heard you say. And so if that's correct, why can't you sell them?
Okay, I can quickly. Plastics don't like to be mixed. So there's about 7 types. 1 and 2 is very, very popular. We can sell and we can separate them. But everything that's 3, 4, 5, 6 soft plastics, all that is mumbo jumbo stuck together, and it has no value because we cannot sort it out. It's too labor consuming. So, and when I go to the store, I can't even look at food anymore because all I see is number 4, number 3. Why are they doing number 5? It's all going to get mixed up. So it's, Canada is not heading towards better recycling. We're heading different direction. Like there's more and more plastics that are combined that cannot be recycled that are on the shelves, multi-layered, multi-plastics all put together that cannot be recycled. So if on the shelves we have plastics that are recyclable, then I could sell the stuff. But now 1 and 2 I can sell, but all the rest, even with like the people that really want to do something, it's really, really hard. So that's okay. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So what's your recommendation then? Is it your recommendation that we ban the use of certain types of plastics? What's your solution to that particular problem?
I think we need to ban certain plastics that are very hard to recycle, like number 5, number 3, maybe. I mean, I'm not an expert, but we should, look at this in a better. Number 7, that everything is combined with aluminum. It's very difficult. So we should stick to number 1s and 2s, and we should, I don't know, I forget the question. It's such a complex issue in 2 minutes. We should have a system that will allow us to recuperate it and to put it back on the market. And right now there's too many elements that are all that are not right in the system, and it's not true that it gets recycled. So we have to look at the problem. And I want to say it's very good that we're banning certain things. It's a good start, but we need to do so much more. So
okay. So I think I have about a minute left. The chair will tell me if I'm wrong, but in a minute.
About a minute, yeah.
About a minute, yeah. So, Mayor Vodanovich, just quickly, if you can, you spoke about the importance of, you talked about putting up sort of a price on things, the importance of doing that. I think you talked about a levy or some sort of deposit or additional fee, whatever you want to call that. Like in terms of incenting behavior or asking people to change their behavior, would you say that, for example, like I think of like a great example of that as being like a price on pollution, like what Canada's trying to do in terms of putting a price on pollution to get us to reduce our emissions. Would you agree that that's a good example of that, or an effective example of that?
It's a good example of that. And the strange thing is that we already pay that. There's a tax on everything you buy that helps the producers recycle it. So you actually pay for the recycling. So how about you pay more for something that is really not recyclable, and you pay less for something that, that can go into Merlin's machine there and can be done. So we need to put this standard, because right now in Canada, we don't know what's a good package and what's a bad package. You have no idea what you're buying, So let's first of all know what we're buying. And people are making the standard, but we need the government. We need the government, the industry is going, oh, we want the federal government to help us. And the municipalities need you too. So we need to continue this conversation.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Madame Posé, à vous pour 2 minutes et demie.
The floor is yours, Ms. Posé, for 2.5 minutes. I'm sorry, I was just looking to get myself off mute. My questions are for you, Mr. Marc Olivier. I admit that the more you spoke about masks, I was thinking to myself, can I help you to recover them? But on a more serious note, you're a plastics expert. Do you believe that the science of bioplastics is advancing at an encouraging pace? Are we unnecessarily delaying the development of recovery and recycling plants? In other words, do we have the technology to move ahead with a real, genuine circular economy, or are we just postponing it for reasons other than technological and innovation ones?
Monsieur Olivier?
Mr. Olivier?
Où êtes-vous?
Are you there? Well, when it comes to bioplastics, that there's a huge problem because they have the prefix bio. People think that bioplastics mean biodegradable. Not at all. We can manufacture any kind of permanent plastic, like the plastics we're all aware of, instead of using a fossil material source. We can use one from current and existing biomass. For example, Coca-Cola and other major corporations, they say in 5 or 10 years, 100% of plastic bottles that are used to sell soda will be made out of this biomaterial. And I have no issue with that because I can use that plastic, mix it with another kind of plastic and recycle it in that manner. The problem is when we sent materials that have a biodegradable component, that's complete nonsense. We end up spending more money to produce materials that are not recyclable. When you produce plastic materials, they have to be part and parcel of sustainable development. They have to be recyclable. They can't be single use. So there's a huge amount of confusion, both among my students and among the general population. Well, yes, you've hit the nail on the head. The plastics industry is focusing on how important its virgin plastic is in terms of its reliability. But there's compostable, there's bioplastics. What about all of those? Unfortunately, I have to cut you off, says the chairman. You've almost up to 3 minutes there, but you'll have an opportunity perhaps to insert your response into the response to another question. But Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, but this is just highly interesting. We're learning so much from our witnesses. So if they have anything that they'd like to send the committee, we'd be highly appreciative. Mr. Baccarat, 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Picking up where I left off with Mayor Vodanovic, I'm wondering how familiar you are with the BC EPR system and whether the products, that's not my question. I understand you're very familiar, but I have a specific question about whether the products that are currently being considered for banning are being recycled in that EPR system. Are they being captured, or are there characteristics that make it very difficult for an EPR system to capture those specific product types?
I think that it's very difficult to capture straws and the plastic could, there's certain things that are just not, and especially takeout containers. I mean, you throw them out, you don't take them home with you, So at least if they were made out of recycled content, at least, or if you paid for it, I don't want to get into it, but I'm sure that many things end up in the garbage. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my understanding is one of the big constraints with food containers is contamination, that we're not allowed to put food containers that have food residue in the recycling stream. Is that one of the constraints?
Just your mic, Madam Ms.
Oh yes.
Villen.
If the more plastic is dirty, and I'm sure that Tony would know better, the more it's dirty, the harder it is to recycle. The purer something is, the easier it is to recycle. So if it's soiled, it's a problem. Yeah. And I know more our recycling system than the BC one, but I was very, very happy to go to BC and to discover how good it is. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that one of the challenges is the inexpensive nature of virgin resin in creating plastic products. And I believe you alluded to the fact that we subsidize the fossil fuel industry very heavily in Canada. How do you see this being addressed by the federal government, and how important is that in reaching the circular economy?
Takes a lot of courage, I think. But it's billions of dollars, and I know the provincial government also gives billions of dollars, and not just to direct subsidies to the oil industry, but also to build new factories for virgin plastic products. In Alberta, a recent one was built, and in the States too, there's many that are being built, plastic factories with shale gas. So it's very cheap right now, and so in order to combat this, well, that's why we need to put in that it's an obligation to put in recycled content, because otherwise nobody will do it, because nobody's crazy enough to buy something that's 4 times more expensive. So, but we need to do it for the environment.
Thank you. Mr. Redekop for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Quentin, about 2 years ago, your organization released a statement praising the new Safe Food for Canadians regulations coming into force. And I read in there, you said the CFIA also met with national organizations, including your organization, to ensure all considerations with respect to the regulations were addressed. We wanted to make sure that from a retailer's point of view, the regulations made sense and there was flexibility built in order for retailers across the country to realistically and efficiently comply. I asked Environment Canada a few weeks ago if they have consulted with Agriculture Canada, the CFIA, and they were very hesitant to answer or elaborate. So I guess for you, was your organization consulted regarding the plastics ban? And if so, were you satisfied that the government listened to you?
Oh, we were consulted, yes. I think we had multiple meetings on that, so we can say we were consulted. I think the interaction with CFIA's food safety standards requirements is something that is important to take into consideration, because sometimes requirements introduced by the government might actually hinder some of the Environment Canada's approach on certain items. So we have to make sure that the Agriculture Canada and Environment Canada have as many conversations as Environment Canada does with certain stakeholders, because clearly there's interactions between the two jurisdictions.
So are you satisfied that when these regulations come into effect on January 1st, that your members can guarantee the effectiveness of food safety in their retail locations?
So since I'm the sustainability person, I can't say that I'm as well versed on food safety than some of my colleagues would be. So I couldn't answer your question in terms of how our members welcome or not the food safety requirements. But I know that this has been part of the discussions we've had in the last couple of years, and they've adapted to the new reality.
And maybe a different way to ask that question is, you earlier testified that you would like to see a 1-year notice to allow your members time to do things like use up existing inventory and properly plan for this implementation. Do you feel like you've had enough time and consultation to accomplish all those things that need to get done?
You refer to the CFIA requirements?
No, just for the plastics ban that's going to be coming in here in January.
if there's an implementation period that is of 1 full year between the moment the ban is announced and it's effective, then yes, that would be essentially what we're asking. I think we're just reiterating that to make sure the message is heard, because again, especially for smaller businesses, they tend to buy in bulk for a full year, and so you don't want to be in a situation where you hurt smaller businesses because they've stocked more than they needed on certain materials because they want to have access to the best price possible. So you don't want to be in a situation where you're really just hurting smaller businesses more than others. So that's the reason why we're looking for a full year implementation timeline.
And as you said before, they may end up just throwing extra materials into the waste anyway if they can't use it anymore. Now we've also heard today that this initial ban that's being spoken about is just the beginning, and there's ongoing discussion about declaring many more items, forms of plastic as toxic. And so as we move down that road to banning more things, there has to be cost implications. And so from your perspective, this current plastics ban that's being looked at, what cost is that going to add to consumers at the grocery store and at your members? Have your members spoken about the cost implications of not being able to use these types of straws versus another type of straw? Have there been any studies or economic analysis done of this that could be shared with us?
We haven't had studies per se on that. We've asked members to look at what the price differences were, but the market has been adapting quite quickly. And so there are lots of new materials that are alternative to plastics that have been introduced on the market. And as a result, the prices for them has changed as well. So it's hard to pinpoint what would be the actual cost implication at this point. We're replacing those single-use items with new ones. But, again, the market is evolving really quickly. So you can notice that a lot of businesses have adopted cardboard-based and fiber-based containers to replace styrofoam, for instance, in the past couple of years. And so as a result, those items are not necessarily as expensive as what they used to be, but they're still more expensive than the styrofoam-based containers, for example.
Okay.
I just couldn't tell you how much.
Thank you. We'll go now to Ms. Sachs for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all of our witnesses today. I agree. We're learning with Madame Posey. We're learning so much in this discussion today, and it's extremely valuable. So, in a previous session, I noted that we're recycling about 256,000 tons of plastic a year, but we're producing about 20 times that in virgin resin at the moment. And there's a cost to that. We've talked a lot about costs to produce and so on, but there's an environmental cost to all of this. And what I'd like to ask is the environmental cost of virgin resins compared to recycled resins reflected in the market today? And should that full cost be reflected for those materials so that consumers make informed choices and so that the secondary market for recycled material is balancing out? So either Madame Vodanovic or Mr. McCatchin to start.
I'll answer. Of course, that is exactly the objective, because the environmental cost of global warming is we know billions and billions and billions of dollars. So that is by no means, if the bottle that is made purely of recycled resin should in the end cost more to the consumer than one that is made from recycled material, partially, because I know it's very hard to do it completely for now, but at least a part, as Mr. McCatchin says, a marriage of the two.
There have been many cases where many studies that shows that each pound of recycled or each ton of recycled resin reduces carbon footprint by 1.5 ton. And there are some that have been done by the federal government. So those studies exist today. In regards to, there's only one thing that I'd like to mention, that we recycle polypropylene too, not only just 1 and 2. We do recycle 4 and 5, and there are some market for those and quite good right now. But it's a fluid environment. I mean, we're competing against commodities that's very fluid. One day it's feast or famine, and our community are looking for recycling today and tomorrow, regardless of if oil is selling at $150 a ton or at $20 a ton. they want their package to. They don't want their package to be in our natural environment. They wanted their product to be out of there, recycled and dealt with. And so that's a challenge we're facing.
Okay, so that leads me to my next question, which would be directed to you. Would a recycled content standard and extended producer responsibility expand the market for recycled plastics and create jobs in the recycling industry?
I firmly believe that it does both. It has an environmental benefit and it has a social economic benefit too for the community. So the environmental benefit is being studied, by reducing 1.5 ton of carbon for each ton of recycled product you're making versus incinerating it or landfilling it. In terms of jobs, I mean, still the product needs to be sorted. The still product needs to be recycled. So it's basically community jobs that are going to be created. And in regards to recycling rate, it's a bit misleading because a lot of products that we make in Canada in virgin resin are exported. So when you look at what have we produced versus what we recycled, I don't know if you could use it, because some of the products that we make in virgin resin is exported all over the world.
But that still has a global impact, which we are a part of. Miriam Vodanovic, I, like you, when I go to the grocery store, I have tremendous anxiety shopping. And, there are places in the world, like in Germany, where they have grocery stores where you come in with your containers. We're not there yet here in Canada, but it's a lot of pressure on the consumer. And, how are we supposed to expect 38 million consumers to be perfect in their recycling when they don't have the information that they need right now? And would it be better, there's a lot of pressure on the consumer end to fix this problem. And would it be better for industry to be responsible for ensuring recyclability and collection and recycling of their products? Professor Olivier talked about that in relation to masks. And, should we have bins, or is there a way that producers should be collecting? We've seen protests where folks leave all their plastic packaging at a grocery store. I'd like some comments from either of you on that perspective.
Briefly, please.
Extended producer responsibility is exactly that, is that the producers who make the brand names, who make the product, have to take care of it all the way till the end. And the onus is on them. It's not on the consumer. You understand? Like, it's not, I don't think that if the idea, I wish I could have more time because it is such a complex issue, because if the consumer could see on the shampoo bottle, let's say he has 5 shampoo bottles and he sees on the 5 that the eco fee on it, if one of the shampoo bottles costs 40 cents because it's impossible to recycle. So that's your environmental fee. And one is 0 because it's made out of, recycled resin and it's reusable, then it's, you will choose that as a consumer. Okay. You will not have that anxiety. And that's where I would like us to go.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll go now to the third. Yeah, we'll go to the third round to be kicked off by Mr. Generou for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for joining us here it's afternoon here in Edmonton, where I am. So we know most witnesses who have already appeared before our committee have agreed that reducing plastic waste is vital. But that being said, we've also heard that the inevitable negative impacts on Canadian jobs, as well as the loss of major investments due to the labeling of the plastics as toxic. So my colleague explained that, I believe well in the last meeting, that while industry may understand the definition of toxic under CEPA, most Canadians hear toxic and think of something that is very dangerous, can kill you, and things such as asbestos. So first question on jobs, and I'll turn this to perhaps our friend at Merlin Plastics first and get your perspective. Do you agree that there's potential for Canadian jobs to be lost if nothing changes?
If not, can you please be more specific?
With regard to the toxic label, yeah. Sorry, yeah. So if nothing changes with regards to the toxic label right now,
I believe, I fundamentally believe that plastics is not a toxic label, and it should not be under toxic, and putting it under toxic will cause harm to Canadian industry, because, and also it misleads the public, as you may, as you have said, people are going to understand toxic as it's going to kill them, but yet it's saving life. I mean, we just heard from Monsieur Olivier how the masks, is recycling the masks, and we know the benefit of the masks to prevent COVID-19. So by putting this label that this is going to be, this is a toxic material, now people are going to be, some of them are going to understand exactly the definition of what it means, but majority of them may or may not understand it, and by doing so, I mean it's going to have effect on, it's going to trickle down to anybody that is in the plastics manufacturing business. Be virgin resin, can be a molder, or can be a recycler.
And so where are these jobs, in your opinion? Are they located here in Canada?
Yes, I mean, I don't have this complete, but there are jobs in making virgin resin in Canada. There's multiple. It's a big industry. There's jobs in molding product, across Canada, everywhere. I mean, in Quebec, in Ontario, in British Columbia, in Alberta, people making products, food packaging and soft drink packaging and beverage containers. I mean, that are every article that is made out of plastic. So all of a sudden, people are saying, well, hold a second, is this going to be hurting me? So I personally believe it's going to hurt labeling plastics as toxic. And also, to me, it's not toxic. I mean, I do have it in my fridge. I do have it. I go to the hospital. It's there in IV. It's everywhere.
You bring up a good point. It is everywhere, and I think about the hospitals here in Edmonton, Alberta, who are using the IV bags, plastic bags, labeling those as plastic, could have that impact on whether or not we could not just use those bags, but that employment on people who make those bags. So, is it? Do you have any analysis on perhaps the number of jobs or the impact that this would have on, just say, a small business, small businesses that we've heard from on this? Just trying to get a scope of how big this could be.
I know it's very big, but I don't have it. But I know people who have it, and I can manage to get it for you. But the plastics industry should have something of that sort. So I mean, I can get this information for you. I don't.
Yeah,
have
and
it
I think that would be.
Head.
No, I appreciate that. And I think that would be extremely helpful as you write a report. And last question, I'll just get you to weigh in if you don't mind. Do you think the reduction of plastics is attainable without this label?
Yes, I believe it is. I mean, economics works, just like Mayor Mike Maya mentioned. I mean, if you have a choice, you just have to price it correctly. What's the environmental impact? And then you have to price it properly. And I mean, we know incentive works. I mean, it works everywhere. It works in our personal life, in our my life with my kids. It works in work. If you incentivize a job, it's going to be done. It's going to be done well. And I don't personally believe in ban. It's like a stick versus a carrot. It's been proven that carrots work better than the stick.
Okay, thank you. We'll go now to Mr. Longfield for 5.
Well, thank you. And thank you to the witnesses and again to the clerks for a very interesting panel this afternoon. Mayor Vodanovich, you made a comment that Canada is not heading toward better recycling. We heard something similar from the recycling businesses in British Columbia and Alberta a few meetings ago, where they said, you're not going in the right direction. But your market solution that you were describing sounded a lot like carbon pricing to me, that you price what you don't want and you incent what you do want. But it also needs to work with the provinces. So I know Quebec has been a leader in climate change pricing as well as in environmental. What message could we be sending to our partners across the country in provincial or municipal governments? You're on mute now.
It's not a tax because I work with PAC, Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I work with the industry. Well, not. I mean, I'm a volunteer, and I sometimes go to their meetings, and just
Sure.
to create the standard. And it's very interesting because they want this standard, because
Right.
they want to be able to say within the industry to say, hey, my package is a good one, and it's worth something, and this package is not good. You know, they want it. You want to do that. So a good package should not pay the same fees for the recycling as a bad package, and they already pay fees. They do. So
in effect, you're putting a value on this as a resource versus as defining it as waste.
Exactly. And we've actually just in Lachine, where I live, we changed the zoning because we couldn't have recycling facilities operate in Lachine because it was considered that they work with garbage.
Right.
So this recycling is quite new, and we need to change many laws and regulations in order to make it happen.
Now, the pressure on municipalities, Guelph has been a leader in recycling in Canada. We've had 3-stream for a long time. We haven't got down to the different streams of plastic, but we do get some recovery as a municipality by processing recycling for other communities around us. We just did a study that was putting forward an idea of limiting the transportation of waste across borders, and maybe I'll start with you and go over to Mr. Mukachin, that the supply chain for recycled product is a very important part that we need to keep open.
Yes, we need to keep the chain open, and that's why we need to make a national standard across Canada, national system and a national standard for labeling, because just small boroughs are too small to create the quantity we need.
And if we don't, it's going to end up in landfill with municipalities that are already overburdened with not having enough space in their landfill already.
Yep, and costing a fortune.
A fortune. Thank you. Mr. Mukachin, does Merlin have anything to add? How do you work with the producers as well as with recyclers? It sounds like there's a burgeoning industry just waiting to burst through here.
Well, I've been working through many organizations, North American like Association of Plastics Recycler. The first thing, the most important thing, it's a package itself. The package has to be designed right. If the package is not designed right, then you can build infrastructure to collect it, and you can move it from one place to another.
Right.
And all you will be doing is increasing your carbon footprint.
Right. So if you knew that you have the cost of not doing a proper design is going to catch you on a responsibility on the user responsibility fees, it's going to make you double check your design criteria.
Well, it's going to double check the design criteria also in 2 ways. First, it's if you don't make it right, it's going to double check you there, and also it's going to prevent you from meeting your goal. I mean, one thing you can stand up and say, I want to be part of the circular, and I want to have 25% circular. Well, when your package is not designed to be circular, how can you do it?
Right, thank you. And Mr. Olivier, if I could, thank you very much, Mr. Olivier, in limited amount of time. It sounds like you have a social enterprise ready to go. Is there a role for social enterprise in doing the sorting and recycling?
Well, oui. Voilà.
Yes, there is indeed a role for social enterprise. Among the micro initiatives that I envisage regarding masks, there is also another initiative which involves groups that provide work to disabled persons who are able to do the sorting. And that company uses small suppliers to recover the materials, either small schools, for example, or dental offices for the case of masks. Let's use that example. So you have to recover the material, then the material has to be modified so that only masks containing polypropylene go to a particular facility. It's always social enterprise, yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Posey, the floor is yours. Well, I think this whole issue of plastics, well, we know that humans are exposed to microplastics with what we breathe, what we eat, etc. And Climate Change Canada published a scientific assessment of these microplastics last year, the effects on the environment and on human health. Now, Mr. Olivier, I'd just like to ask you the question that I tried to ask earlier but ran out of time. We talk about virgin plastics being top quality, etc., etc. And we also talk about the importance of recyclable and compostable plastics. And we are being kind of warned about what we end up replacing these 6 banned items with. They've got to, of course, be waterproof, and in order to contain the food. So how do we sort of work all this out and get a handle on this? Because it's really difficult to go in the right direction when it comes to plastics. Response. Well, let me just give you a threefold answer. First, we must not claim that current used plastics are all toxic, because the definition of the word toxic is based on standardized categories. If you go to the Wimmis facility, for example, there are workplace toxic products, and it defines the properties that are contained in plastic articles. None of our current plastic items fit into that category. So that plastic isn't toxic to humans. However, apparently plastics on their surface, they have materials and chemicals that do become toxic. They're on the surface of those plastics, but apparently the concentrations are so tiny that it's difficult to scientifically assess what the degree of this toxicity is for these surface particles. Second, when you talk about replacement articles, is a paper straw going to work if it is water resistant? Well, the waterproof substance may dislodge and it may be swallowed, but that risk is so tiny that you have to weigh up the benefits of a paper straw with a water-resistant substance. And I think that the benefits far outweigh the drawbacks. And third and finally, let's not forget that if you use plastic materials that are not sustainable, well, it doesn't matter whether they're biodegradable or not. This is a waste of energy and it's a waste of material. Thank you. I think we should go back to water fountains, says the clerk, the chairman, Mr. Blackrack.
Monsieur Blackrack.
Mr. Blackrack.
Mr. Chair, perhaps picking up where Mr. Olivier left off in this discussion of toxicity, it seems from a number of the previous witnesses, there's this real conflation between the way in which CEPA defines toxic and more of a health sciences definition of toxicity. Like, I note that currently under CEPA, there are a number of products listed under the definition of toxic, such as CO2, heating oil, ozone, products that would not necessarily meet that health sciences definition. So it feels to me, and I want to check this with you, it feels to me that the plastics industry is reacting to the stigma of the word toxic without looking at the underlying definition in CEPA. And I would ask whether we've heard other witnesses talk about the reputational damage that could ensue if the word toxic is linked to these products. Has heating oil, CO2, or ozone suffered in the marketplace because of its connection under CEPA to the word toxic?
Well, listen, the best example, you all use table salt. You know, good old-fashioned table salt. I can kill you with table salt, but it's just a matter of the quantity of table salt. Toxicity is dependent on the dose, the amount, which is about concentration and the duration of exposure. I'm currently breathing a certain number of CO2 particles right now. It's not toxic to me, the rate at which I'm breathing it, but if I increase the concentration of the CO2 and thereby the dose, well, that means that it becomes more toxic. So there's the rub. The language has to be nuanced. When you say that X, Y, or Z substance is toxic, but, it might need to be any substance might end up being toxic if it's in the huge concentration of it. So it all depends on what you're exposed to. And some people bandy around the word toxic as a scarecrow to make people afraid. It's all about fear-mongering. That's not how it should be defined. Perfect. Thank you very much. We'll now hand the floor over to Mr. Albas for 5 minutes, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd like to start again by thanking all of our witnesses, but I'm going to direct the majority of my questions to the Retail Council. So in your submission to the Clean BC consultation, you stated that exemptions should be made to bans for items that impact accessibility, such as plastic straws. Now, this is certainly something that we've heard during the study. My question to you is, how do you expect that will work?
Yeah, very good question. I think when you look at some certain places in City of Vancouver, they've created they've introduced accessibility aspects by just requiring businesses to have those items on hand if a customer asks for them and is clearly in need of this item for an accessibility reason, but not to just leave them available for every other customer. That was the approach they've taken in Vancouver. I wouldn't be necessarily able to give you more ideas of what this would look like. I think Vancouver right now is the only jurisdiction that has introduced those requirements.
Well, if we had that right across the country, the number of people who would need these products for accessibility reasons isn't sufficient to maintain domestic manufacturing industry, and importing it would be expensive. The government hasn't even said if it'll allow the importation. So wouldn't only allowing these exemptions increase the cost for a person with a disability?
As I mentioned earlier, it's very difficult to tell what the cost impact would be. Definitely when there's less volume of a material on the market, then the cost is more expensive. That's something I'd have to to look into further to let you know if this would have a major impact or not.
Well, to me, if we banned domestic production, I think many domestic producers who do a good job right now of making a safe product would say you're going to allow imports, and vice versa. And so I think that the government really has an issue here when it comes to deciding on this. Now, you've also argued that significant regulatory reform is needed as a precursor to bans, especially the areas of health and safety. Has that been done, or will the bans have a negative consequence? Will they have negative consequence of what you've warned about?
That's what I mentioned to your fellow colleague earlier when I talked about the interactions with Agriculture Canada requirements. They're not necessarily moving in the same pace when it comes to adjusting the requirements. So it's most of the reasons why certain companies are going with plastics packaging is because that's the only cost viable and viable solution on the market to comply with the requirements from Agricultural Canada. And that's something that we need to keep in mind when we're looking at why certain plastics are introduced on our market for certain packaging.
Great. If I have some time, Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask Mayor Vodanovic Vich.
Go ahead.
Just in regards, so first of all, you mentioned earlier that the government, is not, with this ban, is not a wide enough round of items to have a serious effect. If you had your choice between what the government is proposing now and seeing EPR common standards right across the country, which would you choose?
I wouldn't choose. I would say do this first and then do the other one second.
Okay.
But do it all.
So in the Zero Waste Council's report on a food loss and waste strategy, you state that, and I quote, strong correlation between foods with the highest percentage of wastage and the least amount of packaging. So essentially that proper packaging reduces food waste. Wouldn't then eliminating some plastic packaging and declaring all plastic packaging toxic increase food waste?
No, it wouldn't. I don't think we should mix up the two, because if you go to the grocery store and you see the thousands and thousands of containers of plastics that are there that are made with virgin plastics, I think we have a lot of work to do together as a federal government, municipal governments. There's so much to do than to argue about this.
Are you discounting, though, what was argued in that zero waste report? Because again, strong correlation between foods with the highest percentage of wastage and the least amount of packaging. That seems odd.
It is a very small, how can I say, an angle that you're taking to discredit that we shouldn't do anything about plastics. I think we should start with bans and do things smartly and do things step at a time and make sure that the food is safe. We can do it all. We're smart. Canadians are smart. We can move away from virgin plastics all over the place.
I think it was a reasonable question, but I appreciate that you may not agree with the angle that I'm coming from. But when someone says there's a strong corration between two things, I think it's reasonable to ask about it.
It's okay.
Okay, so
thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
5.5 minutes. Mr. Baker.
Thanks very much, Chair. And I'll be sharing my time with my colleagues. So I'm going to ask one question to Mayor Vodanovich, and the question is, you said in response to a colleague, you said that, and you said it multiple times, that sort of banning certain things is a first step, I think were the words you used. And I guess my question to you is there anything else that you would ban beyond what's already on the list, and how would you determine what that is?
Ooh, that's a big question. I didn't have enough time to think about that one. I would ban certain plastics that are not. I know that number 6, that certain people can do it, but it takes a lot of energy to recycle it. There's certain number 3s. There's certain toxic, really toxic stuff that's in it that we should ban. I would ban the stuff that we cannot recycle, and think about it on a more global scale. Like, I don't think we should be arguing about straws. I don't think the federal government should take any time to argue about straws. I think we should look at it on a global level and see what we need to ban in order to have a healthier Canada all around. And I'm not afraid of toxicity, because so far we eat about, and I think it's in one of the reports from the States, a credit card amount of plastic a week. That's what we ingest, because plastic degrades into microparticles and we eat it. And we don't know. As a precautionary principle, I would not say that this is a good thing. Maybe we don't have all the studies, but to eat that much plastic a week is not a good thing. So I don't think we should be afraid to do what has to be done. We have to move forward and not get stuck in little details. I'm sorry.
I appreciate that. No need to apologize. Thank you very much. And I'm going to pass the rest of my time to Mr. Saini.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mukachin. This question is for you, because we've heard in our last meeting, we talked about bioplastics. What's your opinion on bioplastics, and how feasible is it to include it, and how feasible it is if you've included with fossil-based plastics? What would be the recycling? How would you take it apart?
I think Mr. Olivier has touched into it, but I agree with him. Basically, we currently right now have bioplastics in some PET, bioplastics in some polyethylene. I mean, once you make the ethylene and then you turn it into polyethylene, it doesn't matter if the ethylene is bio-based or if it's a oil-based ethylene. Historically, oil has been cheaper to convert to ethylene, and natural gas been cheaper to convert it. But it's the implication for the recycling is none. Once it's a polyethylene, it's a polyethylene, regardless of it's coming from a bio base or if it's coming from an oil base.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll pass my remaining time to Ms. Sachs.
Thank you, Mr. Saini, and thank you, Chair. So, we keep circling around the boogeyman, which is toxicity. And, the science is clear. Plastic is toxic. It's clogging our waterways. It's affecting our wildlife. It affects our health when it's consumed through microplastics. And, RCC, Mr. Kenton also acknowledged that there is a toxic issue to plastic, and we need to address it head on. And I'd like any final comments from Mayor Vodanovic or Mr. Kenton. We drink soda that has CO2 in it. SodaStream is one of the biggest companies in the world that combines the use of CO2 and hard plastics so that people use them over and over again. So we shouldn't be afraid of the innovation of industry, of setting a line in the sand on what toxic implications are. Mayor Vodanovic, do you have any final thoughts on that?
I think we should be brave enough and just go ahead and do what needs to be done. And yes, microplastics in the oceans are everywhere, and we don't know the damage that it's doing to our fish. We know it's damaging. So we really have to act now and not be afraid. And I wanted to answer, I'm sorry, to Mr. Baker, because I remember now that we did two other things that we wanted to ban, and it's helium balloons that are incredibly not dangerous because they fly over and they go into the ocean and they create damage, and cigarette butts. Cigarette butts are also made of plastic, and they should be done in a different way because they go everywhere and animals les ingèrent, they eat them, and it's very, very bad for their digestive system. So it's something small, but that should be changed into something different than plastic filter. I'm sorry I didn't answer. I took away your time, Ms. Sachs. I'm sorry about the toxicity. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that.
That's quite all right. Mr. Chair, how are we for time? I think we're nearly done.
Yeah, pretty much. Maybe one final comment, Ms. Vodanovic, for like 10, 15 seconds. In answer to Ms. Sachs. Yeah.
Yes, I'm willing to work more with you guys if you need me. I would love to send over more information and what we've done with the at the National Zero Waste, and now we're starting a new area of study and work with the industry and government, which is called it's a coalition for plastics with the National Zero Waste, and I could send you information on that as well, and I'd be very happy to continue this conversation.
Thank you. I have one sort of tentative observation, and I wish there was somebody from the department here, which there will be at some point. I was reflecting on, there seems to be a tension between listing something on SEPA and then or not listing something on SEPA and then wanting a national approach, because I suspect that unless something is listed on SEPA, there really is no federal jurisdiction. So I guess that might be one of the reasons the government did that, so that it could show some federal leadership. And even SEPA, federal jurisdiction through SEPA was not a slam dunk. It was the result of a 6-5 Supreme Court decision in the 90s. So anyway, I hope somebody picks up that question and asks one of the officials when they appear. This has been a great panel. A really great panel, and I must tell you that as of 5 o'clock Friday, we hadn't really put the panel together completely, and I was a little concerned that we'd be thin on the panel and that it wouldn't be a success, but I think it's been one of the best panels we've had on the subject. So I just want to thank all the witnesses for their insights and rooted in great knowledge and experience, and I'd like to thank all the members for their very good questions. So we're at the end of the time for this third panel on plastics. We have a couple more left, and it's been a great study so far. So thank you, Mr. Albus, for suggesting it. And on that, I'll bang the gavel and wish everyone a good evening.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Meeting.
Thanks, everyone.